Hello, my astrology family. This is Lada from astrolada.com, and welcome to the 2022 Astrolada Astrology Marathon, where astrologers from around the world, some of the top astrologers, are contributing with predictions about the coming 2022. And we're kicking off with the amazing astrologer from Singapore, Donny. Hello, Donny.
Hi, Lada.
Thank you for joining me. And
Yes.
I'm very excited about your predictions because you always have some gems that you're such a great researcher and you look at astrology from such a different angle. I'm very fascinated for what you have to tell us about 2022.
Well, 2022, I wouldn't lie, it's not going to be great. So can I just share my screen and perhaps we can jump straight into it? Yeah. This is a chart that's coming from the very renowned Mundane astrologer Barbault.
Oh yes.
And basically here, when we talk about the planetary cyclic index, the higher that it goes means that there's more tendency for the world in general to have more peace, and there's also prosperity. But right now, we are in 2020 to 2030. As you can see, 2020 we start having a dip. We've already been in a dip since 2015, by the way, and 2016 is when Trump got elected. And so, as you can see, we're just in a downward trajectory, and we will only bottom out to pre-2020 levels probably in the middle or towards the end of that time. That means probably quarter 2 or 3 of 2023.
Okay. But still quite low compared to all the others. Wow.
Oh yeah, but when you see after 2020, middle of 2023 onwards, we just go all the way up. So there's no place but to go up.
Does he base his graph, this amazing astrologer, on the major conjunctions and cycles of the planets?
Yes, and then for the audience, they may want to take a screen snapshot to see more in detail, like what actually happened in the previous ups and down valleys of this chart. But just know that we are, still going downwards. Like 2020, 21, 22. 22 is when we hit rock bottom, according to him. And then 23, there's almost like an inkling of some things improving, but it won't be as per pre-2020 levels.
So 2022 is the lowest.
2022 is the lowest. 2023 is like right here, is slightly further up. Yeah.
It's based, let me repeat again. I've read his book and he's incredible at predicting. He passed away. He's a French astrologer. He based his predictions with incredible accuracy based on the average mean of cycles of planets. So each planet, for example, Jupiter has a cycle with Neptune. When they join together, a new cycle starts, and so on. And we have recently in 2020 and continuing to 21, 22, we have a lot of planets starting new cycles.
Yeah.
And continuing actually into the future.
Yeah. So this graph is more of like giving the audience who's not familiar with mundane astrology like a broad overview of what's coming up energetically. So, well, to be forewarned is to prepare yourselves, right? As we always mention. So let me just move on to my slides. And right here. Yeah, so today we are just covering the 2022 overall mundane forecast. And then I'll go on to talk about transits and a little bit of progressions to the country charts of the USA and also UK as well. I'll focus on this too because they are so closely interlinked. And before the US, actually UK was the one that holds the reserve currency. And before the UK, I think it was the Dutch guilders. And then right now it's the US. I do see something going on in the financial portion of the world because as we know, the nodes are also changing from Gemini Sag to the material axis, which is Taurus-Scorpio. So there'll be some things going on there. So we'll start off the year having Venus already gone retrograde, and she already gone retrograde since 18th to 19th of December of 2021. So by the time when 2022 swings around, she's really in the retrograde motion, and she will only leave the sign of Capricorn end of first week of March. So essentially, she will stay in the sign of Capricorn for a good 4 months, starting from November of 2021 all the way till end of first week of March of 2022. So when I think about this Venus retrograde, right, and it's in the sign of Capricorn, which is about government, big corporations, basically structures that are very much top-down. So I wonder if it also refers to old crusty lawmakers and the passing of bills as well, which is very much Capricorn's domain. And this Venus retrograde, like what I discussed with Ian in our Venus retrograde video a few days back on your channel, Venus will actually kiss Pluto 3 times. Mm-hmm. And there's an extended first conjunction and second conjunction back to back, starting from, I think, second week of December all the way till like Christmas or Boxing Day, 25th or 26th. So I wonder if over this period, the crusty old lawmakers will actually sneak in and pass some bills, mm-hmm. while everyone is perhaps feeling stressed because of they have to live with less. Or altogether, they have to celebrate Christmas in a very different way because of less money coming through, because of all that's happened in 2021 with all the mandates and people get fired or leave their jobs and all that. And this is one of my concerns when 2022 starts. Mm-hmm. And we also have Jupiter by transit leaving Aquarius and moving into Pisces, zipping past Pisces really fast, all the way till the first 10 degrees of Aries, then it retrogrades back right to the end of Pisces again. So in essence, this will leave Saturn in the sky, being alone in the sign of Aquarius for the whole of 2022. Mm-hmm. And so this leads me to think that 2022 has the tone of like the conservative undertow. And Saturn, as we know, is very much of the top-down energy. That's why Saturn rules Capricorn. So there's like this downward pushing energy for everyone to conform.
Social norms to the greater social good in Aquarius.
Well, but Aquarius can also be like a very, doesn't talk about emotions and very much like very extreme sign.
Of course. It's
the
sign of the Antichrist. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
And what was it? From Game of Thrones, the Walkers.
And so when Jupiter actually leaves Aquarius, it's almost like that freedom of alternative options or opinions is shutting its doors. That's what I see. Because Saturn is only left in the sign of tropical Aquarius in the sky for the whole of 2022. And Saturn, as we know, is all about regulations, rules, and mandates. Now that Jupiter is absent from there, I find that 2022, it doesn't give us that sort of opportunities, options, and even that small ounce of optimism that we somewhat felt in 2021. As we go through that year.
So the grip of control tightens without even hope of freedom of some sort.
It's like that chokehold just gets tighter.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, that's how I feel about this. And let's move on to the nodal axis shift, because by end January 2022, we would have, how do I put this? We would have the true and mean node, depending which one you use. I use the true node mostly for my readings. Yes, they're just slightly different. both the true and mean node will have fully moved or changed sign from Gemini Sagittarius axis to the Taurus and Scorpio axis. Yeah. So it's there for the next 18 months. And I actually have the dates here. So the mean node will actually change sign to Taurus and Scorpio on 21st of December 2021, with the true node changing signs on 18th of January 2022. So it's about a 3 weeks-ish difference. And for people with planets in Scorpio, I would say the macro direction of growth in 2022 will be opposite of where your natural power source lie within you. And if we talk about, I mean, all of us, in some way, shape, or form, we may have something lying in the sign of Scorpio that's being activated by the transit South Node. So this can be that, because South Node is almost like that, it's the dragon's tail, right? So it actually drains out certain stuff. So if you have something in a sign of Scorpio, you may feel that your battery pack is being drained, and you're trying to just keep up with the basics of life, which is that opposite point, that transit Rahu or North Node in the sign of Taurus. And so this may be like a sense of like, Taurus rules generation, Scorpio rules regeneration. So we'll be going through this like cycle through and through as the nodes are transiting along this axis. And it also may bring about, since the South Node is in Scorpio, there may be themes of unending cycles of power struggles, or there may be a loss of power altogether that we may experience. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, many of us have, I would say, outer planet in Scorpio. They may be hit by this transiting South Node in, or K2 in Scorpio. So for those Pluto in Scorpio generation, you're probably born 1983 to 1995. If you have Neptune in Scorpio, it's 1955 to 1970. And if you have Uranus in Scorpio, which I have, and you have, Lada, we are born in that 1974 to 1981 bracket. And at the same time, we're also going through that Uranus opposition. And it's known as one of the classical midlife crisis transits as well. So this adds on to the theme of that midlife crisis. And some of you may have Saturn in Scorpio. So you'll be born in 1953 to 1956, 1982 to 1985, or 2012 to 2015. And for those who have North Node in Scorpio, you're probably born around 1938 to 39, 1956 to 1958, 1975 to 1976, and last but not least, 2012 to 2014. And so you'll be going through like reverse nodal return, in 2022 and 2023. So for those who have South Node Scorpio, you're born around 1928 to 1930, 1947 to 1949, 1966 to 67, 1984 to 86, and lastly, 2003 to 2004. Which one do I want to mention more as well? Oh, for those who have Chiron in Scorpio, you're probably born around 1946 to 48 and 1996 to 99. And so you have South Node transiting there, and these themes that I just mentioned may be energetically manifesting in your life in 2022 to 2023. Because it was there for a good 18 months until the middle of 2023 when the nodes changed again from Taurus-Scorpio to Aries-Libra axis. So if we just bring ourselves back, since we are very much nearly done with this current transit of Rahu and Ketu in Gemini and Sag, recall when the South Node was in Sagittarius for the past 18-ish months, and all of us couldn't travel freely in one way or another, and our inclinations to roam, explore, and expand are excreted because of the K2 energy, the dragon's tail energy. And all of us are stuck in lockdown and with no place to go. So I only can imagine people with lots of Sagittarius planets, how are they feeling? probably not too great.
I have a few friends very strong with Sagittarius, and they started meditating. They became very spiritual with kids.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we talk
the
about
side of it, yeah, that's the
that K2 energy, right? It actually helps you to spiritualize certain aspects of yourself as well.
Yeah, they started astral travel, like really some kind of out of body experiences. So if you're at that level, but very few people are. So
well, so this adds on to another point previously of the previous paragraph. Like for those people who have what did I mention? Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, North Node, South Node, and Chiron that's transited by the South Node or K2 here.
It's in Scorpio for that reason, yeah.
Yeah, one of the possible manifestation is that you can actually spiritualize that part of you as well. Yeah. And last but not least, since we've got the transit North and South Node in the material axis of Taurus and Scorpio, anything to do with resource and being resourceful will be coming into the picture. And also, because it's the material axis, we are moving towards concepts of equity rather than just ideology as per Gemini and Sagittarius axis previously.
True, because till now, what is true, what is not true? My belief is that will be money. Land.
Yeah, so it's really about, do you have that $2 in your bank? Do I have that $2 in the bank? And no matter what skin color, do you have that $2 in the bank? You know, it's all about that concept of equity.
I can tell you what I see. It's maybe very frightening, but inflation or banks not giving back your money. That's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I'll probably touch on that when we go to particular UK's chart. Actually, I do see something going on there. So when the transit nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, we'll need to really tap into our deep reservoirs of resourcefulness to push towards that transit Rahu or North Node direction of growth. And this is only to satisfy our basic needs, which is Taurus. So major 2022 issues will still be that transit Saturn and Uranus square in the sky. Although it's not exact, the last exact one is right around Christmas week. But then of this year, 2021, but then in 2022, they're still in orb or is highlighted via eclipses as well. And so things like supply chain problems, natural disasters, and more upsets and shortages pertaining to basic necessities of life, even as fundamental as shelter and food.
I think it's even more extreme than in 2021 because eclipses truly trigger now this, like you said. The Saturn square Uranus, it's truly the eclipses that were activated full time.
Oh yeah.
22.
So all these things may be highlighted like at the housing bubble, for example. People speculate on housing prices, they just sense it off the roof. At the same time, there's just not enough to go around to eat. But as you know, humans are very resilient. I always believe that, and we get very creative when times are hard. You know? And that Taurus North Node actually tells me that we'll be getting more creative with our resources, whatever that we have left. And that South Node in Scorpio really takes whatever, like make the most lemonade out of lemons, whatever that we have as well. So with Uranus also in the same sign as the transit North Node in 2022, this tells me that it's really like a gardening revolution. So if you have not started a garden yet, 2022 might just push you to make it happen on a collective level. Because collectively, we are moving towards having your own home garden. That could be your new basic necessity, which is Taurus, and that North Node collective yearning or need to shift to that headspace. But it all but it all depends whether you've got, like, you know, where I live in Singapore, there's just no way to have a plot of land to yourself. All of us are in apartments and flats. So it's literally just growing whatever that you can, like herbs. Like for myself, I grow like certain bits of herbs I can lay my hands on.
In ancient astrology, Rahu is one of the co-rulers of Aquarius, so it has a very Aquarian energy. So Rahu in Taurus, I think maybe people connecting again in some kind of networks to exchange foods and goods will start happening. Grassroots from the bottom down. This is very Rahu, very Aquarius, and for food and for basic goods, which is what Taurus is, and for resources. So
and the modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, is also in Taurus. So we are getting very much creative. I wonder if Lada will go back to that barter trading thing.
Well, it might come to that, you know, people who are excluded in some countries, they even talking of blocking your access to your bank account if you don't have the
liquid.
The liquid, yeah. It might come to that, or because Rahu is one of the most inventive planets. Because Rahu tricked the gods into giving him the juice of immortality. So it might come to that the people that are, like the bottom feeders that are excluded from society become very inventive, even using so-called illegal ways, because Rahu was not afraid to achieve its goal, no matter what means. Hopefully not in the most immoral, but people might be pushed to be very tricky and inventive and circumvent certain laws for these historian things like food, resources,
shelter.
Yes, there'll be a lot of inventions in that, or the start of some system, so for those that are excluded of society to exchange the resources. So that's on the higher positive level. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. And another thing that I've looked at in terms of painting the macro themes of 2022 is to look at, actually starting from this year, are there any things that keep repeating itself in terms of zodiacal degrees? And yes, I did find quite a couple of important ranges in the zodiacal wheel in which I want to highlight. So the first one will be that recurring activations in the zodiac from 0 degrees to 2 degrees of Aquarius in particular, because on 24th of July of this year in 2021, there's an Aquarius full moon at 1 degree 26 minutes of Aquarius that occurred. And this is very much highlighting that 2020 grand conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And in 2022, on 6th of March that day, Venus and Mars will actually kiss each other at 0 degrees of Aquarius again. So highlighting that 0 Aquarius degree. And lastly, on 7th of December of 2024, I think I've mentioned this in our astrology marathon last year. I did put up the chart of this date on 7th of December of 2024. We're going to have Pluto, Venus, and the asteroid Ceres conjunct at 0 degrees of Aquarius again. So this kind of 0 to 2 degrees of Aquarius keep re-trigger as we go along. So this actually tells me that Aquarian themes of humanity, collective ascension, because Aquarius rules frequency as well.
Yeah.
And Aquarius is also about equality. So they're anchoring very fast and very quickly. And I almost think of Aquarius as like lightning bolt kind of energy. So more and more talks will really be pushed onto the center stage for discussion around all these themes. But having said that, Aquarius is also one that talks about stormy weather and talks about stresses in the journey just to get there as well. So hang on tight, I said here, as we undergo these acceleration of current times, because Aquarius can rule acceleration into that air era, what I call that post-2020 era. And
it's, you know, but also Aquarius has this undertone of digitalization. Well, that's the negative side. Well, it's good to be digitalized. How do you use it? And it really stepped up after the July new moon. That's when they all started like mandates,
surveillance.
So they're gonna step up on that other Aquarius part.
Vaccine passport is digital rights to gain something.
Yeah, and while at the same time, it's like this the consciousness is rising in ways during those periods. The more they put digitalized surveillance, and the more people are rising in consciousness. Not everyone, but a certain number of people, the collective ascension, like you said.
Yeah, so this brings me back to where is this all leading to? Because in our last astrology marathon at the end of 2020 for this year, 2021, I did mention that because of this triple conjunction of Pluto's Venus and Ceres, what actually came to my mind is that by end of 2024, there may be at least like a semi-formal rollout all across the world for UBI or Universal Basic Income. So this may be one of the things that may come forth as I keep observing the retriggering of the 0 to 2 degrees Aquarius part of the zodiac.
It's true, because Universal Basic Income is Aquarius energy, everyone having equal basic, So this will be introduced very close to one of those March or December 2024. You're very right. And I've been amazed. This first 2-3 degrees of Aquarius, people have emerged in politics and in media or social influence as major figures that have planets there. For example, Macron, the French president, has his midheaven or his sun there in the first degrees of Aquarius, or the last degree of Capricorn. And I checked a few other, like the boss of the monetary fund, such ones that are rising now in influence, but also the resistance, people from the resistance. Yeah. One of the biggest ones is Russell Brand, and he has 4 followers now. His ascendant is at 0 degrees Aquarius, and you can see how it's working naturally. He's very Aquarius. He's talking about forming communities. So from both sides, such Aquarian first degrees people are rising in prominence from both sides of the narrative.
And you yourself have like ascendant there as well, right?
Oh, I've been bashed. I've been sick all year.
Well, but that's because you do have like transit Saturn, Pluto, midpoint, hovering over the first few degrees of Aquarius. So that's understandable. But just let you know that it will clear around like January.
Oh, please. I haven't been able to work much. It's so stressful.
So since we're talking about the first few degrees of Aquarius, I just want to tell, at least show people there are 2 ways we can see this age of Aquarius. Pardon me for the color code. I'm not talking about the Matrix here, although the Matrix movie will be coming out soon. Whether you want the blue pill or the red pill.
I love it.
So do you want, like, on the blue side, how do you want your age of Aquarius to be, honestly? Like, do you want a sense of community? Or you want to take the red pill and be just like all of us become misfits of the system and all of us are just driven into isolation? Or do you want to live as a global nomad or citizen? Or maybe even galactic citizen, now that Elon Musk is going to Mars, right? And the blue pill also includes, like, all of us are doing our authentic work and be our authentic selves. Whereas on the flip side, it can be like everything is artificial.
Yep.
Do you want a life of freedom? Or do you want to live in a dystopian world? Do you want a world that's full of diversity? Or do you want one that's like very centralized, as in people tell you what to do and you just have to, all of us are just existing, you're not living. And as you mentioned earlier, Lada, everything will be like digitalized or automatic that can be used into our advantage. But then on the flip side, it can be mechanized, as everything is very robotic, like there's emotion and
you're
all
so
that.
Feeling connection with what you're creating. Yeah.
And also, Aquarius on the positive side can be referring to like groups of people coming together. But then on the flip side, it can be hegemony. Hegemony here means that there's like a leadership or dominance by definition, especially by one state or social group over others as well. An alternative definition can be like the political, economic, and military predominance of one state over other states. So quite a few here in the red side can be the shadow side of Aquarius, which is the Leo end of things. And
it's not only the Leo kind of stuff, it's also the dark side of Aquarius. Because mechanization is not.
But usually I see things like an axis. Yeah. So like the shadow side of like Leoness coming through as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So if you decide to take the blue pill, it can be breaking free. I think like this year, was there like news talking about the Great Resignation in the US?
Great what?
Like, the Great Resignation. A lot of people are resigning from their work because they can't find that meaning anymore.
Sorry. Oh, that's interesting. You know, that's what Rudolf Steiner, the great prophet and esoteric teacher of the 20th century, said, that one of the dangers of the future, what is happening already, is that people are so disconnected from what they're working. They're not connected emotionally to it. Or if you work in the factory, you're doing one part, you don't see the whole thing together. So there is no emotional connection with what you're doing. And he said these will be the perfect conditions for the arrival of Ahriman, which is, you know, kind of AI that he talks about and such kind of stuff. Because you don't feel any mean. Sorry, I went on.
No, because the thing is that I find it really uncanny that a lot. I mean, I've been talking to younger folks. Some of my clients are actually pretty young, and some of them also decide to step away from the job that they found no higher meaning in. You know, it's almost like the frequency I talk about, that Aquarian energy. It's not vibrating at a level whereby they resonate with and can stick onto. Mm-hmm. And when I see this, the Great Resignation going on in the US and other developed worlds, I see this as an air era response to the old bullshit that the Earth era has been putting on us.
To what? Sorry, I didn't understand.
It's like the air era response.
Air era? What is that?
AIR, we are in the air era, you know, because all the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction will be in air signs.
Air era.
Yeah, air era, sorry.
Oh. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, the air era response to the old Earth era bullshit.
Bullshit. Okay.
Yeah, that we've been subjected to. I've been in the, you know, I've lived a lot of my life in the Earth era. I know what bullshit it goes on there. Like,
yes, it's all about having the material resources. The Earth, like, oh, it's safe here. I keep this job. I can feed my family. The air era that started is like, I need mental stimulation and I need to ideologically identify with what I'm doing.
And it's also about chaining ourselves in the Earth era to our office table for the many hours a day on the regular. And right now, since 2020, we've been working from home, and this is kind of, oh, okay, like a whole new reality opens for people. So it's about that breaking free energy. But if we decide to become sleeping sheeps, I will call, or sheepos, we will be entering a world of chaos, whereby the powerful few will actually dictate what the rest of humanity ought to live like. So it can be very dystopian, like I mentioned earlier. And the very last one, do you imagine the age of Aquarius as an age of pure possibilities where anything is possible? Or your mindset is, oh, this age of Aquarius era is going to be so unpredictable and I can't, I must live day by day and not have any plans. So it can be very disheartening in terms of like one's life direction of what one actually wants to do out in the world. So this is something, these two columns of ideas is to let people think about which side do you want your age of Aquarius reality to be, on the blue side or on the red side? So the next part that I want to talk about is besides 0 to 2 degrees of Aquarius, I keep seeing 22 degrees of Aquarius being triggered as well, zodiacally. So on 4th of April of next year, we're going to have a Mars-Saturn conjunction at 22 Aquarius. And that is the same degree where Jupiter actually stationed direct on October 18 of 2021 this year. And when I look deeper into that Mars and Saturn conjunction at 22 Aquarius next year, it is forming a very tight square to the nodal axis. Because when that conjunction happened between Mars and Saturn, the transit Rahu or North Node will be at 22 Taurus, so it's close to exact square. And Moon has just separated from North Node then on 4th of April of next year. So this actually makes me think that because it's a fixed axis square, and anything that's fixed axis is very much material driven. And this to me also represents a time, probably around April of 2022, where there can be like an expenditure of large sums coming of money for the sake of progress, which is Aquarius themes. And things like scientific research, atomic and nuclear power is also Aquarius, and also social welfare projects. That's very Aquarius themed things may drain the Taurus royal or national treasuries, because Taurus in mundane astrology can rule those things. And this is on the back of promising for a greener earth. What this tells me is that because it's a square between Mars and Saturn and the nodes, this represents stresses or challenges or something are at odds with each other in what to give and what to save, and what to change and what to preserve. That's in the backdrop of like global austerity and scarcity. And this is coming from things that's no surprise to you, like global chain disruptions and also resource inequalities. And I've actually also written here that Mars actually activated the Saturn and Uranus square of 2021. I think it just happened this month earlier when Mars entered Scorpio. So it formed like a T-square with Saturn and Uranus. And I've backtracked to those days, and I found out that the new variant, the Rona variant or Omicron or something, emerged from South Africa around then. So very, very interesting, or very coincidental, but in astrology, nothing's really coincidental, really. Everything happens like clockwork. And for people who want to do Scrabble work, Omicron, if you rearrange the letters, it can form the word moronic, by the way. And this Saturn-Uranus square is still active but not exact in 2022, and is highlighted by those eclipses. So it's going to bring more power into that supply chain disruptions, governmental mandates versus bodily autonomy issues, on top of like resource inequalities. All those things will be really highlighted via the upcoming eclipses in 2022, even though they are separating. So I've actually looked at the Sabian symbol of 22 of Aquarius, this repeated degree in the sky. And it talks about the discipline of self-control. And when I look into the meaning of what this degree really means, it's really talk about the taming of our powerful animal nature to harness it as a resource. But then, if it's used on the lower vibration, this talks about really the employment of like systems, mandates, surveillance, controls, regulations, and all those to repress people's animalistic anger, power, and passion. So there's this kind of pushing it down because of this Saturnian energy that we mentioned at the beginning of this talk, to keep those anger and passions in check. It's almost like I've written here non-expressive conformance. So it's to really push us to become like, it's almost like not emotionally connected with ourselves and just move on together along with their agenda kind of energy. And I would say around April of 2022, there may be some either unavoidable conflicts going on in the world. And April is also the time where there's another thing going on in the sky. And this will be happening at 23 degrees of Pisces, because there's repeated activations at 23 Pisces. So just 1 week after 4th of April 2022, when transit Mars and Saturn conjunct square the nodal axis, we're going to have Jupiter and Neptune conjuncting at 23 Pisces. And 23 Pisces is really highlighted back in 2021 because we've got a new moon that's exactly on 23 Pisces as well, and that happened way back in middle of March of 2021. Also, transit Neptune stationed at 23 Pisces in late June of 2021 before it goes retrograde. So you can see 1, 2, 3. There's a lot of this 23 Pisces energy going on in the sky that keeps repeating itself, or keep weaving that energy into our psyche and consciousness globally. And transit Mars will also form a square to that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction point 3 times as he goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini just before Halloween in 2022, all the way till early 2023. So all these things that's come into place make me feel that some things are going to happen in April regarding that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction on a very large scale. The last time that this actually happened in the sign of Pisces was middle of March, specifically 18th of March in 1856. And there were tremendous and dramatic floods in Europe predominantly, but in particular it hit France really hard. And besides more rain and floods, because we're talking about Pisces, right? Water runs deep, and water and Pisces actually rules tsunamis. So I wonder if there's any instances of tsunamis going on around first half of April of 2022, besides floods as well. But when we talk about the more psychological level, so much water, because Jupiter expands Neptune's energy in Pisces, and both planets function very well in that sign as well. This excessive water element in April of 2022 can also mean like uber or ultra emotionality. And I find that more people will wake up, be awakened. What we are being told before 2022, people will find somehow the truth will come to light, and there'll be a lot of like disillusionment, disappointments.
For the blind faith.
Blind faith as well, very Pisces. And also we are part of this enslavement program because Pisces actually rules enslavement.
Slaves, true. Do you think there is like an expansion of enslavement? It
can be on 2 different levels, which means that there can be expansion of rules and regulations. Like I mentioned, because of that late degree, that 22 Aquarius degree keep retriggering, that make us like, oh, have this realization that, oh, collectively we are going down this path. what's laid out for us. It's almost like, on another level, actually, this also can tell me that people will have to fight for their freedoms. It's no longer protest anymore, so it can get a bit gnarly.
How do Pisces be fight?
Because
Saturn Mars conjunction, more like.
Yeah, because of that downward pushing force of that Mars and Saturn conjunction squaring the nodes.
It feels like a tube is being squeezed, like hands around the neck.
That chokehold around our necks.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then because Pisces, because it's two fishes swimming away, right? So it's either that you just say that, okay, I surrender, this is my life and that's it. Let the people around me take over the cause. Or you actually come together and really go for it.
Unity. But
Unity.
Also, I think it'll be, again, Pisces is very much about spirituality, and a lot of people kind of withdrawing into an emotionally higher elevated place within them. I don't know, it's discovering internal resources, spiritual, I don't know, at least the higher vibration of Pisces. I'm trying to squeeze something good out of it.
And it's also, Pisces is one of the water signs, right? So it's a mute sign. So I wonder if globally there'll be like silent protest.
Oh, meditations, people unite in big meditations, because you see protest, there'll be the violent protest, Saturn Mars conjunction in April.
There will be, yes.
Because
so it's like a
about social activity, but Pisces is about the power of the spirit, and with Neptune and Jupiter, maybe people will turn to God now and say, yeah.
Pisces to me is that diamond consciousness of oneness, all of us merging into that diamond consciousness. And so like silent protest as in group meditation all over the world. Me saying this actually sends shivers down my spine, but it's very much of like coming together in like the thousands or if not tens of thousands and sit down and really like meditate together and really raise the vibration of things.
I think that's really the answer. Because if we get too violent, they'll involve military, what's that called? Martial law. It's dangerous for that, but I think the power of love of Pisces with the power of psychic power, basically doing it psychically. I hope people form, maybe people will be so desperate by then that they'll see, why not try it, you know? But I also am a bit worried with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, because Pisces rules unemployment. Pisces rules dematerializations, like suddenly loss of a lot of assets, you know. Pisces rules confinement, quarantine, camps,
also rules
prisons. And there can be like explosion and no boundaries for quarantine camps, imprisonments, because Jupiter.
And also Pisces rules refugees.
Unemployed refugees, exactly. So, but
all these things,
they can be beautiful things as well. Let's not scare people. They can be a boom of art, of internal inspiration. The Piscean blessings, they're soul blessings. They're not on the material level. They're of the soul. They're of the richness of the internal experience. They're of soul growth. On such level, it's not so visible externally, but I hope, you know, and there is of love, of those values that are invisible, intangible, and virtues, the virtues.
And it's unconditional love as well, because it's in the sign of Pisces' of exaltation.
Exactly.
Sorry, Venus's exaltation, sorry.
Some of us might turn to that, seeing that the path of violence, or the path that our voice, the chokehold is becoming too strong, like you said. Our hands is being twisted. So what else but turn to spirituality and to such like very invisible means that can, like a tidal wave or tsunami, can make a shift, hopefully. So that's where my hope is, my gleam of hope with this combination.
And to address your question regarding like, oh, Pisces, why is it violent? It's also about transit Mars hitting this conjunction point at around middle of May in 2022. And when Mars actually triggers this 23 Pisces point, where Jupiter and Saturn kissed in the second week of April, this can be escalation of it can be escalation of violence. People they are very self-righteous because Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune all mush together. I can see like a virtuous fighter archetype. So there may be something going on in the middle of May, especially around plus minus a few days before Mars hit that 23 Pisces degree. But then in April, I must mention there's one day that's very good. I think it falls on 30th of April. For some people, will be 1st of May of 2022. That is when Jupiter and Venus kiss at 28 of Pisces. And I think Venus at 28 Pisces is also at its exaltation degree as well. So if you have something nice to plan on 30th of April or 1st of May 2022 where you are, that's one of the, I would say, a very nice day out of the whole year in 2022 to plan something nice for yourself. I also want to mention that on probably the last week of July to the first week of August, there will be this clustering of Uranus, Mars, and Rahu together at 18 Taurus. And when this happens, it's very close to squaring 22 degrees of Aquarius. So there's something that's re-triggered in the last week of July, the first week of August, that's going to highlight this whole theme that I just mentioned regarding that 22 Aquarius degree. So look out for that period as well. And so if I actually combine all the things I just mentioned until now, you will find that April, May, and August onwards are active periods for the year 2022. And I just recalled that when April swings around, there could be like another major wave of the Rona coming our ways. Because we're talking about Neptune nonetheless, and Neptune can rule, you know, those things. And
it might not be even corona, it might be some other disease.
It can be, yeah.
Pisces is all invisible. Anything invisible in Jupiter, Neptune remove any boundaries to the spread of such invisible things.
And this can be on top of natural disasters pertaining to water, as in floods or tsunamis around April of 2022. And just a lot of chaotic energy, I would say, around April as well regarding infringement or outcries, stripping our civil rights and all that. And there may be even more tight hold or chokehold of enforced lockdowns as well. There also can be like an increase in global retrenchment as well, because Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces can also rule retrenchment.
What does retrenchment mean?
Retrenchment means you are made obsolete on the job. There you go. You know.
What do you mean? Oh, like being fired?
Yeah, being laid off.
Yes, that's an employment. Pisces is an employment.
Yeah, so that as well. And do I want to mention anything else?
Anything more cheery?
Anything more cheery? Honestly, when I did the slides, I gotta take a few breaks.
I know, you told me that it will be heavy. I
tried to like raise the energy of this presentation, but you know, like there's only so much I can do.
Well, I think the good side will be in the personal lives of people.
But you know what? When I think about energy, in polarity, because we're entering the air era, right? The air element is about consciousness. And we need a counterforce to really nudge the collective humanity to accelerate that raising of their frequency, vibration, and consciousness. And sometimes you need stuff like this, or I would say shenanigans, shenanigans or rubbish things that's thrown our way in order to wake us all up to what have we condoned to happen to us collectively.
Exactly. I mean, the white and the dark forces serve the same master and are created by the same creator. So these are means of contrast. And now the dark is a bit more contrasted, let's say. But you're right. We need that squeeze.
Sometimes you need that
push.
What's that saying that Isaac Newton said? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction or something. Yeah. Sometimes you need that polarity of force to make things happen.
And despite of what is happening in the world, I've been seeing such incredible things in the personal lives of people, because they can use these energies in a much higher way individually. Because collectively, we always tend to manifest the lowest common denominator. But individually, I've been seeing people finally be liberated from jobs and take on a path of something that they really wanted to do. I've seen people break free, and also in 2022, don't forget, Saturn will be in its own sign. Jupiter will be in its own sign for a big part. So there will be periods when you manifest that house that Saturn and Jupiter are transiting through, because the ruler of that sign being in its sign, it manifests that area. For example, Leos might be getting married or doing some very important business partnerships, because Saturn is in its own sign in the 7th house. Virgos as well, because Jupiter is in its own sign in the 7th house, and so on. So check out where Saturn or Jupiter, where Pisces basically and Aquarius are in your horoscope, because those two areas in your life can be very giving, manifesting, even if the whole world is tumultuous around you. So, and we can see that. Yes, 2020, 2021 were very bad collectively for humanity, very difficult, but some new billionaires were created. So in the midst of difficult astrological aspects, they can be personal growth and positive developments. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, and well, because this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is exactly on my 7th house cusp.
Oh.
Maybe something will happen. Well, fingers crossed. And I just want to mention also that, should I mention this? I've actually looked at when the next pandemic will come.
Okay, carry on, because they're preparing us for it already. So
there's 2 criteria that I look at. One is when Jupiter and Pluto, when Jupiter is swinging plus minus 30 degrees from Pluto, that's one criteria to create a pandemic related situation. But the second one is that Saturn needs to make a sign-based trine or conjunction with Rahu.
Saturn trine Rahu.
Saturn trine or conjunct by sign with Rahu.
Trine or conjunct, because these are the aspects of Rahu. Okay.
If these two are fulfilled, this was fulfilled back in 2020, 2021, and so we are having all these things play out. So if you guys are more like hardworking, you can see when the next time Jupiter is plus minus 30 degrees from Pluto, and when transit Saturn and transit Rahu is trine or conjunct by sign. This is roughly when, like,
yeah, it's not gonna happen soon.
I know when, but I should just zip, because this is really depressing.
When Saturn trine Rahu.
Saturn trine or conjunct by sign to Rahu.
When are they gonna conjunct?
Because Jupiter Pluto happens every 12 years, right? Conjunction.
Yeah.
So if you count plus minus 1 sign is 2031. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to a country chart, which is the USA, land of the free, or so it's called. I've actually used the non-Sibley chart, because Sibley chart is usually indicated as 5:10 p.m., but I've used the 4:50 chart because when I applied transits and progressions, this chart just make more sense to me in terms of timeline when things happen. But of course, if you decide to use the 5:10 p.m. chart, which is the official Sibley chart, you will also realize that Pluto over here, by solar arc direction, has moved on to conjunct the 5:10 p.m. chart midheaven, which is at 1-ish degree of Libra. But in this, I've used the 4:50 p.m. chart in this case. And before I actually move on, I also want to give extra reasons why I choose this chart to apply transits to. Because progress Neptune, according to this chart, has moved forward to conjunct natal midheaven in late Virgo degree. That means Neptune has reached this place by progression. If I use this chart, and Neptune has reached the natal midheaven point since February of this year in 2021. And when I think about this progress Neptune hitting natal midheaven of a country's chart, this actually lasts from, or the effects of this will last from 2021 to 2058. So a good 37 years. This progress to natal aspect will be active. And as I mentioned earlier, if you decide to use the 20 minutes later Sibley chart, you will also know that, like I mentioned, Pluto is, by solar arc direction, will hit the midheaven of USA's chart as well. So if you talk about Neptune and Pluto, these two energies, it's really the whole revamping of a whole country's image as the world's superpower. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if, with all these things going on, just by looking at these two things, whether US will stay as the world's superpower as well. And another reason why I chose the 4:50 p.m. chart is because there's an angular Uranus going on, conjunct the 7th house cusp as per this chart. And this chart is very much bang on point because of that recent insurrection that happened in January of 2021. There was a chart that's derived for the moment whereby there's an insurrection, and the ascendant is at 8 degrees of Gemini.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Uranus stormed the White House or whatever it was.
So Uranus descendant totally describes that energy. And also, if we rewind slightly back 2 months before January 2021, in late November, 30th of November of 2020, we've got an annular lunar eclipse at 8 degrees of Gemini as well. And there's a very important fixed star over there. Was it Aldebaran? Mm-hmm. So all these things just syncs up. So that's why I decided to go with this chart and apply transits to look for 2022 energies for USA. And the last time that progress Neptune has hit natal midheaven, that was back in 1859. And 1859 was a very dicey, unstable, uncertain, unstable kind of atmosphere towards the leadership direction of the USA. And the last time that progress Neptune hit the natal midheaven, it stayed there for a good 29 years, from 1859 to 1888. So what actually happened in this 29 years, starting from 1859? Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860, but he was assassinated 5 years later in 1865. And over this time, when progress Neptune is on the natal midheaven in the USA chart, the American Civil War broke out in 1861, and it lasted till 1865. And James A. Garfield, was also assassinated in 1881 as well. For those who are familiar with American history, all this ties in really into the progress Neptune to Midhaven, NATO Midhaven conjunction. And if we look at the themes that's going on there as well, and apply it to what's going on in recent times over the past few decades, I do see a linkage, because it's like back then in the 1859 to 1888, for those few decades, there's an abolishment of slavery. And then not forgetting, in 2021, we've got Black Lives Matter. Do you see that? Like it's almost like history repeating itself. And when this thing happened as well, in the mid 1800s, towards the late 1800s, there's also like the rise of capitalism, and the beginnings of Wall Street actually happened in 1872. And in recent years, there's also the Occupy movement that also involved Wall Street as well. And also in the 1800s, there was this thing called the women's suffrage. And in recent years, we've got a Me Too movement. You can see how this Neptune, by progression, hit the NATO Midhaven. Some things are repeated in terms of themes. So I've applied transit to the USA chart I mentioned. And what I want to describe is that I basically identify each transit to the natal chart, and I've identified and used using Excel spreadsheet to plot the key months.
Wow.
Of activations of each transit. So you can see it's different, it's color coded differently. Basically, in short, I dissect everything and restacked everything.
You are crazy, Virgo.
Okay. So, but this visually, you can see when things start adding up. Because if there's more simultaneous transits going on, it stacks up. And you can see from May onwards, things start happening a lot. And it just like, for the rest of the year, it's pretty much active. For people who want to take a snapshot of this, please do. I just want to like keep it short. Basically, when I see all this, transits going on for the USA chart in 2022, it can be broadly classified into three things. The first one would be pandemic-induced issues. The country has not resolved it, it still has to grapple with it. And the second main point is that there are some American Civil War indicators as well. And the third point I want to mention is that there are some resemblance to the same triggers that happened to the USA back when it was undergoing the 2008 financial crisis as well. So these three things add together on a macro level. This doesn't really paint a very rosy picture for the USA. And I would say that the energy, although in May things start stacking up, but in February it's really started. Because of that Pluto return that the USA is undergoing 3 times over the whole year in 2022. So all those in red will be like when transit Pluto is half a degree from natal Pluto in the USA chart.
Yeah.
So these are not exact dates whereby it will bang, hit onto 27 Capricorn. I put half a degree on each side, and these are the key months whereby the 3 Pluto returns will occur. And the first one actually hit in February of 2022. So I actually wonder if, because there's a lot of talks regarding the debt ceiling in the USA in recent months. So I wonder if in February, whether there's a decision to go one of several directions. One is about removing that debt ceiling so they can keep printing money.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can decide to raise the interest rates, but then it will also cause the issue of deflationary spiral in the USA. So they have a very difficult decision to make in February.
Deflationary or inflationary?
If they decide to increase interest rates, that means that it discourages borrowing. Mm-hmm. So it'll be a deflationary measure.
It will be, I wonder, will the money lose its value, or will money just, I don't know.
I would be more inclined to think that they would want to remove the debt ceiling altogether.
So to remove all debt?
Debt ceiling, because like the debt ceiling in the USA is like how much they have to pay back, right? If they remove the debt ceiling, they can keep on printing that fiat money, in which we have like lived, for me, all my life since I think the decoupling from gold standard happened during Nixon's time back in 1971, when he decoupled the USA from the gold standard. So there's something going on in February regarding the whole financial system, because Pluto is in their second house anyways, of money, value, resources, all those things. But then the main event will start ramping out from April, May onwards. For the rest of the year, you can see this whole chunk here happening simultaneously. I would say that after analyzing everything, this does not mean that in 2022, there will be like a full-blown nationwide mess going on. But then, when transit Neptune fully enters the USA fourth house cusp at 25 Pisces, that is a different story. Because it's almost like the base of USA will really weaken. And this will happen from March 2023 onwards. Now it's almost like heading there, but not quite yet there as well. Also, I want to mention something regarding the American Civil War indicators. Okay, there are three things I want to mention. Okay, so these two are correct. Transit Neptune on angles, 4th and 10th house cusp of the USA chart. Transit Uranus, semi-square Venus in the 7th house. And also transit Jupiter, particularly in the sign of Aries, sextile Uranus on the 7th house cusp. These three are what I find repeating itself. That's like the prelude to some kind of American Civil War-ish energies, which I found. And I've actually backtracked to May 1855 to February 1860. This is where these three transits are piling up from each other. And the American Civil War did start in 1861. And the second time when it happened, there was a slight difference. Jupiter's transit is still the same. That's in Aries, sextiling Uranus. And transit Uranus is semi-squaring natal Venus. These two are the same. The third one is slightly different. This time, I think I'm talking about the late 1930s. Transit Neptune was over the midheaven of USA's natal chart. all these three transits pile up on top of each other in the late 1930s to early 1940s. And then shortly after, USA is involved in World War I against Germany. And right now in 2022, you've got 1, 2, and the third one I've not put here are also occurring again. So this leads me to think that the actual Civil War-ish energies will be more falling into next year's energies for the USA. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, carry on.
So let's move on to the UK. And for the UK, I've applied the same methodology, but thank God this table is a bit more condensed. It's not as long. But then there's a few important indicators that I want to mention. There's something regarding the UK's financial system that's very much affected here. And there'll be a lot of, I wouldn't say it's very surprising, but there's a lot of retrenchments going on as well. A lot of shortages in many areas. I think I've seen a picture of a supermarket, I think Tesco in the US, they actually even put paper cutouts of asparagus on the shelves to make the supermarket don't look so empty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's to that extent. And this is also because of the whole Brexit thing, right? Like there's not so much movement, people outside the UK, they can just come in and out as they wish as before. So there's a lot of this kind of shortages going on. But then most importantly, there's something regarding the currency, or should I say the face of the currency that's highlighted here. And for you guys, if you want to Google the currency of the UK, the pound, whose face is on it right now?
Oh, I don't know.
The Queen.
Oh, okay.
And there's already talks about after the Queen's husband passed that she wasn't in a very good state health-wise. And there's already talks about replacing her face with the one that's coming into power next. So I've actually looked at the Queen's chart, and in 2022, there's actually a particular month that I'm quite worried. And this is middle of March of 2022. And the inner wheel is the Queen's chart, and the outer wheel is the transit chart of the day in the middle of March. You can see here the transit K2, or the South Node, is bang on the Queen's midheaven and Saturn. And Saturn is the ascendant ruler. And she natally have ascendant and K2 conjunct. This is already one indication. Guys, if you are not sure about what I'm talking about, you can go back to see the live stream that me and Lada did regarding the Halloween special. This is really a not so good sign. Here we have Scorpio, and here we've got Capricorn, a Saturn root sign, which can mean a weakening of the bodily system. And in the sky, in the middle of March, also in 2022, Saturn is approaching to square the nodes as well. And Saturn, by transit, is passing over the Queen's Jupiter-Mars conjunction in the first house in Aquarius. And Mars actually rules, Mars actually rules the MC here again. So there's a lot of 10th house, first house emphasis, and it's aspected by transit K2 and transit Saturn. Yeah, I can see there's a lot of like weakening of energies, at least for the Queen physically, in her physical body. So I don't know if there's something going on there. I don't try to wish bad for anyone, but I'm just saying like I mean it. So, yeah. So in the middle of March, there may be something going on for the Queen and the royal family. So there's really talks about replacing the face of the pound with the successor's face already this year. Just FYI. So when this thing happens, it should not be a surprise after all. And what I also want to mention is transit Saturn also forms a T-square with the Saturn and Neptune of UK's chart. So Saturn will be around here in late Aquarius, and it will form like a T-square. So it will essentially it will essentially pull in Venus as well. So what this tells me is that there may be the hammering of the pound's value in the forex market. And the last time transit Saturn caused this activation is back in 1992, and people can Google this event called the Black Wednesday, what actually happened. I'm not saying that the exact thing will happen again, but the energies may be similar regarding that. And somewhat there'll be this kind of new creation of currency that people may not approve of. And also Parliament and businesses will be at challenging odds with each other. And this can lead to some kind of promising more that you can deliver. That means empty promises. And this can also lead to job and other financial losses as well. And the energy will be very much active with those bars or months highlighted in red, which are September to November. But the energy is really setting in since February. Yeah.
I think the pound can get a hammering.
Yeah. So people can Google what is Black Wednesday, what happened in 1992 for more information. Because there was the last time when transit Saturn was in the same spot that is now. So
fascinating. I have a pound in pounds.
It's about cycle. So yeah. And another two are also indicating the financial vulnerability of the pound. And this is transit Uranus, forming a T-square with Neptune and Venus. And transit Jupiter as well. So Uranus brings the unpredictability, and Jupiter is about that wealth, how much you can gain. So when I see these two combined together, triggering the UK's chart, it tells me something regarding the UK holding on to toxic assets in terms of investment, and there's also a question about bank solvency as well. So it's also pointing both that I mentioned, this and the previous one. They are talking about the development of alternative currency. And this thing regarding, what is that called? Central bank digital currency? I think that's what it's called. Yeah. I think they're really looking at that. Or I've also written here that in October, when everything stacks up, there may be like a decision from the UK central bank to kind of implement some kind of bail-in strategy.
For what?
To kind of prop up the economy. Yeah, so instead of bailing out, it's bailing in.
Bail in, bail in.
Bail in, yeah, BAIL-IN. People can Google that. So there's this kind of dynamics going on that led me to understand that, okay, like the Rona has played out for a substantial period of time. We are probably sick and tired of hearing it, but 2022 is really like bringing that focus into the financial sector and the housing bubble.
Yeah.
That
the prices of property will go down. Currency might start being replaced with digital. They're already mostly digital, but like some new currency. Yeah, Uranus Rahu conjunction in Taurus. That's total innovation of the money system.
Yeah. And there's if I'm not wrong, was it a solar eclipse? I forgot, is it a solar eclipse or lunar eclipse? That will be highlighting that Uranus.
Yes, absolutely. Uranus and
let me see if when is that going on?
I think it was in May already.
Oh, it's a total lunar eclipse happening around 8th of November of next year. Yeah. At 16 Taurus, that's the total lunar eclipse.
Yeah, exactly. Uranus kind of will be.
And Moon and Uranus is less than a degree apart.
Wow. Yep, guys, get ready. Well, what do we do if we have savings?
I mean, the more traditional way of investment will be like, gold and silver coins. And if some who are more adventurous, they can go into crypto. At least a small portion. Just, I wouldn't say just dump everything into crypto. I think there'll be like also unless you can see your money going up and down every day, most of us just can't. Yeah.
I'm watching it. My husband has his moon in Taurus, and he's been having digestive issues from all those up and down.
I know, and it's like depending how much that he has put in, it really can screw you up health-wise from all the anxiety. You know what I mean? So yeah, just housing issues for the US. It will be like American Civil War indicators coming up for them, like 2023. I see it more of like 2023 than 2022 because of some supportive influences that help to diffuse it. But then that where it's all going. And this 2008 financial crisis indicators is tied to housing anyway, the housing bubble. Yeah.
Wow.
And how these two countries are so interlinked. That's why I chose these two to analyze, and how we are in this global economy. So anything that happened to these two countries, it just reverberates out to the rest of us.
Well, thank you so much, Donny. You've made such an incredible job of compiling all this information, researching it for us. Thank you so much, Donny. It's always fascinating having you here. Have a very, let's say, more peaceful 2022, hopefully, but...
Certain months are rougher than the rest, but as I mentioned, like the last day of April, it's actually pretty nice. I like that Venus-Jupiter conjunction.
The last day of April in 2022 will be good.
But I do like that 28 degrees Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Yeah, at 28 Pisces. I love that conjunction.
Forward to that one day in 2022.
Well, I mean, honestly, if I were to put it in perspective, the first quarter of 2022 is all about big financial decisions regarding resources on a global level, what we're going to do for the rest of the year. Quarter two can be one that's slightly more enjoyable, slightly.
Mars retrograde.
That won't happen till like end of the year, like close to.
Talking in quarters, sorry.
Yeah, quarter two. So like April to June, it can be more pleasant. And then when Mars goes retrograde just before Halloween, and activating all those eclipses that we've just had in Gemini, Sag axis, yeah, it won't be the most pleasant time. And of course,
media wars and social media wars are starting again.
Or maybe we need alternative new media to come up.
Yeah. But it's again, the Gemini, when it goes retrograde, is the sign of two siblings that are being, Mars is very divisive energy, so there'll be separation as well.
It's either you agree with me or we just fight like crazy, right? And also last week of July to first week of August, where there's a triple conjunction of Rahu, Uranus, and Mars in Taurus that can be quite explosive. So, and all squaring Saturn.
When is that?
Last week of July 2022, all the way till end of first week of August.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a T-square involving Mercury as well. Wow. So Mercury on one side, Saturn on one side, all squaring.
Mercury in Leo, probably.
Mercury in Leo, Saturn in Aquarius, all squaring everything in Taurus, which is Mars, Uranus, Rahu. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go out around that time. Like, yeah. If I can, I'll just like pour my, I don't know, 5 to 10 kilos of Epsom salt and just bathe in it. You know what I mean? Time to discharge so much harsh energies around then. Yeah.
Wow. So what degrees is this happening around? So those people are warned with Leo, Aquarius.
The triple conjunction, you mean?
The T-squares, the triple conjunction.
The triple conjunction in Taurus will be at 18 degrees of Taurus.
So if you have something from around 15 to 21 degrees in the fixed signs, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius. Oh my God, that's my whole family.
And well, I mean, it's time to do some. It can be used for something good, as in since it's a T-square, right? Mercury, Uranus, Saturn. Time to go for retreat.
I can hear my daughter screaming. Thank you so much, Donny. Wonderful presentation. And let's hope next year you have better news. No, the end of next year for 2023.
I'm not sure after 2022 forecast what's the response, but people can put it in the comment section below how I did. I didn't want to elaborate every single thing on the slides because people can read it. I just want to like paint the overall picture, and people can always do a screen snapshot and see for themselves. I hope there's no spelling mistakes.
Have a happy 2022.